Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
How wonderful for us to join together in this wonderful and sacred space, this place where we are each able to come and to gather together freely, openly, in this wonderful time of Shabbat. Imagine over 70 years ago, when Jews would not be able to gather freely, would not be able to observe Shabbat, would have to hide, or those times where they were secluded into the ghettos, or those times where they were forced out of their homes and into camps, or in a place where they were living in tight areas, not able to be free, not known by their names, but rather, in some cases, known by a number tattooed on their arms. Imagine not being able to be free, be able to proudly say, I am a Jew, and not be afraid that somebody was going to hurt, destroy, kill, try to eliminate us completely. How fortunate we are. How fortunate we are to live in a land where we are free, where we are able to be who we are, to embrace our Judaism, to celebrate as a young man will be called to Torah tomorrow. Jack, we get to celebrate with you out in the open. We've heard stories of students becoming not bat mitzvah then, but more of bar mitzvah, in the shadows, in basements, or in a camp. But here we get to celebrate openly and freely. But at the same time, we have to remember. At the same time, we have to hold on to the lesson of never again. That's our job. That's what we're all to do. To hear the stories and then to carry them forward, because unfortunately, survivors like Phyllis, survivors like Dr. Jacob Eisenbach, they won't always be around to tell us their stories. So we need to listen carefully. And tonight, we are going to be listening to the voices from Czechoslovakia specifically, because this year, as we are healing our Torah scroll, our Czech Torah scroll, that's where we're focusing, and that's where we're being able to learn more about the history, learn more about the stories. Stories as Sarah has shared with us so many years as well, of being a survivor from Greece, survivors from all different countries. In some ways, we all are survivors, but we get to carry those stories with us today and always. I am so, so grateful to an amazing committee who has worked tirelessly to give to us this wonderful service tonight. To Michelle Singleton, who took on this wonderful task and just went 120% into it, to being able to say, I want to do this, I need to do this, this is important. Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. Along with Scott Singer, Sunny Sandberg, the mother of our bar mitzvah, Debbie Malo, not that she had anything else to do, and Lori Glaske. Thank you all so very much. So let us take it all in today. Let us also take in the lessons that Cantor Reinwald will share with us of the music that will be playing on our heartstrings and that will be ringing in our ears. Because we have to take that lesson of never to forget and never to let it happen again. How many of us read the article in the newspaper about millennials and the fact that so many people, so many millennials especially, do not know about the Holocaust, do not know what Auschwitz was? We need to fix that. We all have to take responsibility for that, right, Jack? And as a young man, as a bar mitzvah, thank you. Because you, my friend, you are bringing light to that. You are bringing the sweetness of all of us embracing Judaism and embracing these wonderful moments together. So, Jack, I want to invite you, along with your parents, Aaron and Debbie, and your sister, Maddie. Will you come up and help us light our Shabbat candles and bring light to this Shabbat, along with, of course, the sweetness of Shabbat with Kiddush. So we turn in our prayer books to page 2. All right, so here, Jack, I'm going to give you, we're going to light from here. Hang on, get this. So if you will go ahead and let's take the candle right there. Go ahead and light those 2 candles there, my friend. Almost. There we go. Here, go ahead and I'll have you blow that out. Go for it. Make a wish. There you go. As we join together with our candle lighting, page 2.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
As we turn to page 5, or page 123 in your prayer book, there you go, Jack. And if you will step forward, my friend, and lead us in Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinhilanu zikaron l'maaseh b'reshit ki hu yom tehillah l'mikra'e kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim
Kivanu v'charta v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha אותנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
Chaim. Mazel tov. It is with that spirit and that voice, thank you, that we bring Shabbat in. Mazel tov, yesh koach. Maddie, mazel tov, yesh koach. To you? Yesh koach. We're a little bit tight tonight, sorry, but there you go. Oh, mazel tov. Oh, beautiful. I'll let you go have a seat. Tomorrow you get to really dive into it. Mazel tov. So tomorrow, Jack, 10:30, here, leading us in our Shabbat worship with a voice like that. That's beautiful. So, it is that light. It is the light of our youth who sit here before us and with us. Look around. Look at these wonderful youth who are here with us. Look into each other's eyes. Take a moment. Look at one another. Say hello. Say Shabbat Shalom. Give wonderful greetings to one another. Shabbat Shalom. And look at the light that is within each of you. Yom HaShoah. What is Yom HaShoah? HaShoah. It's an intense word. It is fire. It is destruction. This day of remembrance. Yes, we remember the destruction, but what we hold on to is the light. Every year when we remember a loved one who has passed, we light a yahrzeit candle. Yahrzeit, from Zikaron, a remembrance. Tonight we are going to remember. We are going to remember those whose names we know and those whose names have long disappeared into the smoke, but we hold on to them in our heart. 6 candles tonight that we light. And so we begin our service with this first candle and with this responsibility of remembering. 6 candles for 6 million. But over 11 million people perished. Let's hold on to their memory tonight. Let's hear their stories this evening. Let's welcome the Shabbat angels to come in and to join us. Ask them to please wrap us in their wings, their divine wings. Bring us safety. Shalom Aleichem, come, O angels of peace, and grant us peace. Page 24.
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShoah, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShoah, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon,
מלאכי המלאכים, הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Shuvchem l'shalom, return, O you angels.
שובכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלאכי המלאכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Shalom Aleichem,
שלום עליכם, מלאכי השרת, מלאכי העליון, ממלך מלאכי המלאכים, הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא. And it is with welcoming angels and welcoming one another that I call forward the president of our congregation, Jack Holmes, to welcome each of us and to bring greetings to us and things that are happening within our congregation. You are one of our angels. Shabbat Shalom.
Oh, it's rich in here. Shabbat Shalom. Never forget. Never forget. This is not some sort of slogan. Never forget is not a conversation starter. Never forget is a mission statement, a critical objective for us and for everyone else as well. I read an article this week which indicated 1/5 of United States millennials, 22%, and 11% of US adults haven't heard of the Holocaust. 2/3 of millennials do not know what Auschwitz is. To me, this is completely astounding. This is a wake-up call. If we allow this trend to continue, the memories and deeds of our brothers and sisters who perished at the hands of evil will no longer be part of society's dialogue. Those who don't know history are condemned to repeat it. Never forget. Never forget. It's a mission statement. It is incumbent on us to not only keep the memories alive, but to reinforce history, bring awareness to the uninformed, and inspire acceptance of others, regardless of their differences. If we do not make sure the Holocaust is never forgotten, it may happen again. Thank you, everyone who worked so hard to make this service tonight so meaningful for everybody. Mazel tov to Jack and the Melo family. You're going to rock tomorrow. You got such a wonderful voice. Tomorrow, Torah study is going to be led by Rabbi Cohen as we study Shmini. Kosher food laws are introduced. Priests begin officiating. The lives of Aaron's sons, 2 of his sons, are taken by God for violating sacrificial rules at the altar. It's a lot of fun stuff. TBS has formed a new support group for grandparents that are raising their grandchildren. The first meeting will be on the 18th at 10 o'clock. Please RSVP to Beth Shanfield if that's something you're interested in attending. We also have another new event coming up called our Backyard Bash. It's going to be on June the 2nd from 4 to 9 with unlimited beer and wine tasting, and of course with food. Also, we have sitters and fun things for the kids to do in the social hall, so it can be a really fun evening for the whole family. May the 3rd, Rabbi Donnell and Wendy Bokarski are going to be returning for weekend services and educational programs. And of course, all the details for these events and other things are on our website, so I please invite you to go and look at that. And please read the bulletin to see what Mitzvah Meals needs this week to support their program as well. Sarah, where are you, hon? I already know the answer, but I have to ask, will the shop be open? Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
We turn to our daf, our reading booklets, as I'd like to, oh yeah, good, yes, thank you. As Josh Nowak, if you will please rise and read for us our first reading, Smoke.
Smoke. From the crematory flue, a Jew aspires to the Holy One, and when the smoke of him is gone, his wife and children filter through. Above us, in the height of sky, saintly billows sweep and wait. God, wherever you may be, there all of us are also not. Jacob Gladstein.
Thank you. Chatzi Kaddish, page 26.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
יעמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי. בחיי כל וביום ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ימרו.
Amen. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולם יומיה יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה
תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירם בעמו. Amen. We rise now for Baruch Hu, our call to worship, page 28.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Please be seated.
Before Czechoslovakia was ever Czechoslovakia, it was a series of adjoining independent states. Now, I think it is the most beautiful and wonderful place in the world, but I'm a little biased, I admit it. I was born in 1890 in Bratislava, in one of those independent states known as Slovakia, and as a Jew, I was in the minority population. No surprise, right? The Jews have always been the minority wherever we were, and because of that, Jews were leery of trying to influence overall society in these states. Working as a lawyer in Bratislava, I used to have conversations about how to convince Jews and non-Jews how to get along. Easier said than done. Just within the Jewish community, there were different factions of Jews who didn't see eye to eye on issues with each other. Sound familiar? And it was usually based on politics. Sound familiar? I saw that engaging into the political strata was really the only way for the Jews of these Czech states to gain acceptance. My goal was to bring together the different factions into one and to assimilate into the mainstream social and political world of these independent Czech states. To my happiness, in 1918, the political leaders of all the independent states got together and created the country of Czechoslovakia. This is it, I said, this is our time to shine. After many meetings, I eventually brought together the leaders of different factions of Jews, and together, through intense discussion and compromise, we did indeed create a united party, the Zidovka Strana. We were the political party that represented the Jewish minority in the new Czechoslovakia. We worked so hard to become a relevant player in this new country, but the going was tough, and our own infighting was an issue and continued to divide us. I gave a speech in 1928. It was an angry speech. I couldn't believe that those leaders continued fighting over what I considered petty issues, that they couldn't see that it was this infighting that marginalizes the Jewish influence on Czechoslovakia. We need to stop. We need to compromise. We need to be one. It worked. In 1929, the Żydowska Strona won 2 seats in the parliamentary elections, making me the first Jew to sit in leadership of Czechoslovakia. Over the next 9 years, I was able to pass legislation important to the Jewish community, financial support for Jewish educational institutions in Czechoslovakia, and more lenient immigration legislation for refugees escaping persecution. Yes, I'm talking about European Jews, and yes, I'm talking about Germany. My name is Julius Reich. I fled Czechoslovakia with my family on March 15, 1939, the days the Nazis occupied Czechoslovakia. I lived in Palestine, then Israel, until my death in 1976, and my family lives on today. Sarah Schweitz, will you please come up and light a candle for the Jews of Bratislava who perished when the Nazis occupied Czechoslovakia?
Wherever your heart moves you, if you prefer to stay in the position that you're at, or if you would like to rise, we listen and we recite together Shema, the prayer of our heart, the prayer of God's oneness. Together, page 34.
Shema
Continue, Ve'ahavta, page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם
Adonai Osborne, if you will please share with us the reading from Franz Kafka on page 5 of our daf.
You are both the quest and the confusion of my heart. Love is a drama of contradictions. I could drown in sleep as I drown in fear. I would be no longer alive. Anyone who keeps the ability to see beauty never grows old.
Thank you. Dr. Jacob Eisenbach, will you please read for us Passing Chelmno? There we go. Right here. Yeah.
On the main road dividing past and May, along the road to Warsaw, little ghost of Lidis, a row of peasants cutting up the earth on bended knees. A man spiffs up a roadside shrine, leaving a bunch of tacky flowers. Little figures bathing in the water, little thought to what was there, by Jerome Rothenberg.
So we join together. Icha Mocha, a song of freedom, a song of redemption, page 40.
בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדע בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai, Malekutecha, Lahuvanecha, Rokei Hayam, Bifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Ze'elim, Anu ve'ameru. Adonai, lo le'olam va'ed. Who is like you? Adonai, who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai.
My mother used to tell me I was the prettiest girl in Samarin, the small farm town in Czechoslovakia where I grew up. I would stare at the mirror, admiring my long pigtails, wondering if she was right. My older brother, Armin, was 13. He was my best friend. My father was a shopkeeper, and in his spare time he studied Talmud, and he taught Armin and I the Talmud. We were a traditional Jewish home. We all wore head coverings and attended synagogue on the Sabbath and on holidays. We were indeed a lot like you are. But in 1938, when I was 7 years old, Hungary invaded my town. I thought the Hungarians were our friends. My father did lots of business in Hungary. but Hungary was being controlled by the Nazis, and I heard that they hated Jews. I remember the soldiers singing vicious anti-Semitic songs, and my mother told me we couldn't keep kosher. We couldn't read newspapers or listen to the radio anymore because we were Jews. I didn't understand. On March 19th, 1944, something changed. Father came home from interrogation from the Nazis and said we had to leave and grab what we could. We were forced to go to the town of Nagyara. I couldn't believe how many people were forced there. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people who turned out to be like us, Jews like us. Somebody told me that we needed to survive the ghetto. Ghetto? I didn't even know what that was. But after a month there, I learned, and I learned quickly. The Nazis would conduct weekly programs called liquidations. I didn't know what that was either, but I also learned quickly because my father, my daddy, my papa was murdered in one of those liquidations. The rest of us were forced to do daily labor. I didn't know what that was either, but I learned quickly. I had to learn a lot of things quickly. I didn't feel pretty anymore. On May 31st, 1944, the Nazis forced us on a train that took us to Poland. I didn't know much about Poland, but I learned again quickly. The door to the cattle car opened, and the sign said, Auschwitz. Soldiers were screaming at me. Vicious dogs were barking at me. Men were swinging whips at me. They separated my mother and me from my brother. I tried to cry out and scream, but I couldn't. The chaos made my head spin. I held my mother tight. There were very unfriendly women who forcibly separated us, but I didn't have the strength to fight. They stripped off my clothes and shaved off my hair. My long pigtails were gone. The next year is a blur. Actually, that's the excuse I use so I don't have to talk about what happened and what I witnessed. And yes, that included being put in line with the other girls and someone choosing which of us went to work and which of us went to the gas chamber. One day we were all put in the cattle cars in a train. It seemed like the 100th time. We were told we would be taken to Dachau for our final solution. I didn't know what that was either. I was only 12 years old. After a couple of days, the train abruptly stopped. There was gunfire and bombs, yelling and screaming. Bullets were piercing the walls of the cattle cars. And all of a sudden, there was silence. It was an eerie silence. I thought it was the end. The final solution was indeed coming for me. The cattle car doors opened abruptly. What turned out to be the last time for me. Standing outside were soldiers, American soldiers, my liberators. They were here to save me, and they did. They saved me, they saved my mother and Armin. I'll never forget the day, April 30th, 1945. My name is Ellie Friedman, and I am still alive today. My father was murdered in April 1944. Hannah Kodkin, will you please come up and light a candle for my daddy, for my papa?
We are guardians. We are guardians of memories and of the stories. And we are guardians of Shabbat, page 44, Vishamru. Turning to page 46, we rise now for the Amidah.
Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha, Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha, Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imaot, U'mevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, Le'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol atah Rav Lehoshia, Morid Hatzal, Mechakeh Chayim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Ve'rofei Cholim, U'matir Asurim, U'mekayem emunato Lishenei afar, Michamocha Ba'al Givurot, U'mido Melach, Melech Memit U'mechayeh, U'matzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot ha'kol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selam. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God.
I should not be alive. I was born in a concentration camp. I should not be alive.
Trebakovich was the town I was born in. In 1917, oh my goodness, it was no more than a pass-through village on the way somewhere else. We were Jewish, but not religious.
My mom is being very modest, but she was the smartest kid in her family. So smart, she got into the University of Prague and studied law there.
It was wonderful at university, being in the big city, the exchange of ideas, meeting people from foreign lands. Then, in 1939, the Nazis invaded.
The first thing the Nazis did was close the universities. Mom stayed in Prague and found work as a hat maker, where she met my dad, Bernd. Dad had come to Prague in 1933 from Germany to get away from the Nazis.
My burned, he was so handsome, so beautiful, but so despondent, because he found himself again living under Nazi rule. We lived a relatively normal existence for a year and a half, but Jews increasingly came under strong restrictions.
It was more than that, Mom. You and Dad were first forced out of your home and to a warehouse near the train station in Prague.
They don't want to hear this, Eva.
Yes, Mom, they need to hear it. It's important. Mom was sent to a Jewish ghetto in Theresienstadt. Dad was also sent there, but they were not allowed to be together, live together, see each other. Despite that edict, and because their love was so strong, Mom and Dad found ways to secretly meet. And then Mom became pregnant.
Being pregnant was a death sentence. So where did I lose my place? Sorry, thank you. For a Jewish woman under Nazi rules, Jews were forced to sign a document that if the baby was born, it would be killed.
I should not be alive.
Months passed and my burned was being sent to Auschwitz-Birkenau. Not understanding what camp was, I volunteered to join him. He was my love.
You've all heard the stories about the train journey, the inhumane treatment, the overcrowding, the malnutrition.
When we got there, we got off the train and they shot my burned.
They murdered my dad.
I had no reason to live except for this child I carried in my belly, my Burns child, the child of my love. I had to protect her. The weeks at Auschwitz taught me that upon the birth of my child, the Nazis would send the child and I to the gas chamber. Distraught, malnourished, and pregnant, I volunteered for slave labor at an armaments factory near Dresden in Germany.
Yes, another one of those train rides. I should not be alive.
During the Allied bombing of Dresden, the Nazis put us back on trains and moved us to Matthias, concentration camp. It turned out that camp had one purpose and one purpose only, to kill Jews in the gas chamber.
During the two-day trip to Mauthausen, the Americans had bombed and blown up all the gas chambers at the camp, so the Nazis just dropped off the Jews there and fled. The day after arriving, I was born.
My baby was born. She weighed only 3 pounds, but somehow both of us survived the birth. 3 days later, American troops liberated the camp. God bless America.
God bless America.
My name is Anka Bergman. I died in America in 2013.
My name is Eva Clark. I'm lucky to be alive today.
Susan Jasper, will you come up and light a candle for my husband?
For my dad.
Prayers for peace, wholeness, completeness. We join together Shalom Rav, page 60.
Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam, ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom, shalom rav, O Yisrael. Tasim leolam, v'tov b'einecha ראשם בשלומך שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם תשים לעולם תשים לעולם.
We think about all of those who are in need of healing, healing of mind and body and spirit, as we offer this prayer of Mishaberach. Mishaberach Avotenu v'Imotenu Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah. Hu yivarech et hacholim. I invite you as I face in your direction, if you'd like to share names of those who are in need of healing of any faith, of any tradition, friends, family, anyone within our community. It's okay to let the voices also weave together. It's okay. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Bless the ones before
I grew up in the beautiful city of Brno, the second largest city in Czechoslovakia. I remember being in awe of the beautiful large trees that dwarfed everything in the landscape. My mama Olga, well, she was a strong, tough Jewish woman. Yeah, she ran the house. My papa Zygmunt, he was a shoemaker. He made wonderful shoes, and he was beloved by the neighborhood, but not just for his shoes, but for his piano playing. See, my papa told me when I was very young, Pavlinsky, he said. That's what he used to call me. A person's life is a musical symphony, broken up into 4 distinct movements, and that everything in life is music, and the sounds and tempo of each stage of your life composes those movements for your symphony. My first movement. My papa taught me that there's music in everything in life, and that's what I heard as a child. The wind blowing through the trees was a G major. The laughs of my friends in school was a middle C. The calls of the merchants in the town square were triad chords. Hey, Papa, I think I'm starting to hear the music of the wind blowing through the trees. My first movement was an allegro. My second movement. I studied music at the Brno Conservatory and was honored to study under the noted Czech composer Leos Janáček. He showed me the music of the world. I fell in love with Russian classics, Italian opera, and American jazz. And the muse for my compositions? Well, it was the beautiful women of Prague. The musical notes I would hear in their company were spectacular, especially one particular girl, Sonia. She stole my breath away. Despite not being Jewish, she became my wife, and together we had a beautiful daughter, Olga, named after my mama. Hey, Papa, I can really hear the music of the wind blowing through the trees. I composed over 50 works over the next 2 decades. My second movement was an allegretto. My third movement. A dark cloud came over Czechoslovakia when I turned 40. The music that life was making was no longer made up of major notes and chords, of happiness. It was made up of minor notes and the sounds of unrest. Hey, Papa, the music of the wind blowing through the trees is growing faint. It's replaced by goose stepping, gunshots, and cries. I was a Jew, and my symphony was turning into a death march. I found out I was to be deported to a concentration camp, so I quickly and painfully divorced my love, Sonia, so she and Olga could escape the inevitable fate that waited me. My third movement was an adagio. My fourth movement. The Nazis sent me to Terezin concentration camp, where I was reunited with some of my fellow Czech Jewish composers, my friends, Viktor Ullmann, Gideon Klein, and Hans Krasa. We found out why the Nazis put us there. They wanted us to write music for their propaganda films. Because of fear of torture and death, we did it. Hey, Papa, I don't hear the music of the wind blowing through the trees anymore. I was transferred to Auschwitz. When we were unloaded from the train, we were marched towards a building. I looked up, something I hadn't done in a very long time. The sky was a magnificent blue with one big cloud. Hey, Papa, I think I can hear the music again. But through clearer eyes and head, I would have seen that there was a red tint in the sky and a foul smell in the air. No music came to me from these things. We were marched into a building. The doors closed behind us. At that moment, the music died for me. My fourth movement and my symphony never got to be finished. My name is Pavel Haas. I died on October 17th, 1944 in Auschwitz. Susan Scheffler, can you please go up and light a candle for me?
We take some moments now for some silent meditation.
This music that you hear playing is by Pavel Haas, who we just heard from. This is his suite for oboe and piano, written in 1939. This music is very representative of the music of this time. It was stark and modern, and as you can tell, not so easy to listen to. In a way, it was reflective of the era, both a modern era of new inventions and technology, and also an era of the destruction of war, fascism, and uncertainty. This type of music doesn't have a strong melody, nor is it centered around a single key, and for that reason we call it atonal. Some of this music is also called 12-tone, being that there are 12 notes in a scale, and this music sometimes will use every single note in the scales, thus it's called 12-tone for the 12 notes. The movement which created this music was called the Second Viennese School. It was called the second because the first Viennese school included composers you might be a little bit familiar with: Mozart, Beethoven, Haydn, and sometimes Schubert is included in that group. The second Viennese school consisted of three prominent composers: Anton Webern, Alban Berg, and the Jewish composer Arnold Schoenberg, who himself was a survivor of the Holocaust by emigrating to the US. This movement of music was most active between 1903 and 1925, but continued on through their protégés who carried this music to a second generation, as you will see with these four prominent Czech and Jewish composers, beginning with Pavel Haas. We now turn to the friends of Pavel Haas that were mentioned in the monologue. The first is Gideon Klein, born in 1919. He was a composer who wrote equally for voice and for instruments, the latter being the more famous of his works. While imprisoned in the ghetto town of Terezin, Klein wrote choral works for the conductor Raphael Schechter, but unfortunately only one of those choral works performed in the ghetto remains today. Klein was sent to Auschwitz, but ultimately died in a coal mining camp, Fürstengrube, in January of 1945. His death was an immense loss to Czech music. A pianist who eulogized him later said, "I met him in Prague in 1940 when I, a 17-year-old girl, started to study piano. Gideon, tall, slim, with black hair, vivid but controlled, was of extremely impressive and well-groomed appearance. He was considered to be one of the most talented pupils in piano, and despite his youth, had a distinct personal developed touch. His outstanding intelligence, his great interest for many different branches of art, for literature, and especially for music, so impressed all who knew him that it seemed as if some strange magic emanated from his personality. All of us without reserve admitted the superiority of Gideon Klein, maybe just because he did not try to be better than we were. He was." We move to Hans Krasse. Born in 1899, Hans Krasse is one of the most lasting names. It's one of the most lasting names of the composers who came out of Terezin. And this is for his most famous work, which was a children's opera called Brundibar. This is the opening of that opera. The story of this opera was also turned into an illustrated children's book with English words by the playwright Tony Kushner, with illustrations by Maurice Sendak, also a Holocaust survivor. This has been staged in the US several times in the early 2000s, including productions which included costumes and sets by Maurice Sendak. The storyline follows two children who are out to fetch a pail of milk for their ailing mother. Their money is stolen by an evil dictator-like figure named Brundibar. The direct likeness of this character to Hitler cannot be ignored. The children call upon animals to help them save the day, and this is their ending victory song. The entire performance is about 45 minutes long and is performed entirely by children. As you can see, the children and the animals triumph in the end. The final composer we are remembering today is Victor Ullmann. Born in 1898, Ullmann was a student of Arnold Schoenberg. Ullmann, just like his contemporaries, had a very successful and fruitful career as a composer, conductor, and a music director prior to World War II. Of all the four composers, he was the most steeped in opera, choral, and vocal music, and it is his vocal music that has stood the test of time. While Krasse was writing in Czech, like you just heard, Ullmann wrote entirely in German, as it is believed he was educated in Vienna, being that his father was a high-ranked Austrian officer. Ullmann is most remembered for his opera Der Kaiser von Atlantis, The Kaiser of Atlantis. This work is dystopian and postmodern in its ideology of a world at war, where death has quit its job and no one can leave from the misery that surrounds them. The libretto was written by a fellow prisoner, Peter Keen, who was an artist only in his early 20s. The music is a pure example of atonal composition, and yet a lot of these compositions still use repeated melodic figures to represent a theme. You're going to hear a voice that will sing hello, hello several times, and it's saying hello, hello. This voice is never seen on stage. It's only heard through a loudspeaker. That's part of the scenery. The repeated melody is sung on what we call a tritone interval, which is the most dissonant two notes that can be placed together in the entirety of music. It should also be noted that Ullmann's opera never was performed in Terezin, even though it was entirely composed and rehearsed there. The Nazis heard their rehearsals and forbade its performance. Ullmann, his ex-wife, and his son all perished in Auschwitz in October of 1944. His music was rescued by a survivor who brought it back to Prague after the war. This opera has since been performed throughout the world. the voice from the loudspeakers introducing the characters and introducing that Death exists, but Death is not doing his job.
In eigener Person, den man schon seit Jahren nicht gesehen hat. Denn ist in seinem Riesenpalast eingeschlossen, ganz allein, besser regieren zu können. Der Trommler, eine nicht ganz wirkliche Erscheinung, wie das Radio. Der Lautsprecher, den man nicht sieht, nur hört. Ein Soldat und ein Mädchen. Der Tod als ein abgedankter Soldat und Harlekin, der unter Tränen lachen kann. Das ist das Leben. Das erste Bild spielt irgendwo. Tod und Harlekin sitzen im Ausgedinge. Das Leben, das nicht mehr lacht, und das Sterben, das nicht mehr weinen kann, in einer Welt, die verlernt hat, am Leben sich zu freuen und des Todes zu sterben. Hallo, hallo!
It is so important to me that we keep this music alive, even though this music is not music that you would find at the top of music being performed really anywhere these days. So I ask of you to please find time to go peruse the names of these composers that you will find in the back page of your program. They are amongst the most prominent, but there are many others that join in them in this genre. You can find, amazingly, you can find these days a lot of this music online, even in places like YouTube and Spotify, and you can even go to good old Rabbi Google, type in the names of these composers, and it will lead you right to various websites, including the United States Holocaust Museum has a page that's dedicated specifically to music that was written during that period. You'll find that just as much as listening to the music is haunting, if you read about their short lives, their lives are incredibly fascinating. Zichronam livracha, may the memories of all these composers and artists who gave of their lives for their art be a blessing. Amen.
Before we conclude with our Aleinu, we are in the period of counting our Omer, the time from Pesach to receiving of Torah on Mount Sinai. I am ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer. I invite you to please rise as we join together in this mitzvah. The blessing can be found on page 278.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer.
Amen. Today is the 14th day, which is exactly 2 weeks of the Omer. We continue now, Aleinu l'shabeach, as we remain standing on page 282.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות אדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל העולם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על
We turn to our final candle. Phyllis Schneider, will you please come forward and come light this final candle with me at this moment? Born in Czechoslovakia, a survivor of Auschwitz and Mauthausen, it is an honor for us to have you here with us, to help us remember also those whose names we don't remember. We light this final candle in their memory, in memory of, you got it together, in memory of all of those whose names might be lost, but their memories shine like a flame in brightness and in hope. And we read our final reading of El Malei Rachamim for the victims of the Holocaust, Sarah Schweitz. If you will please read that for us. Right, Lori? That's right there. There you go, Sarah.
God, full of mercy, defender of widows and father of orphans, be not silent or restrained regarding the blood which was spilled like water. Grant proper rest beneath the wings of your presence, in the great heights of the holy and pure, who like the brilliance of the heavens give light and shine for the souls of multitudes of thousands, men, women, boys, and girls, who were killed and slaughtered and burned and suffocated and buried alive in the lands touched by the hand of the German oppressor and its followers, all of them holy and pure. May the Garden of Eden be their resting place. Therefore, may the Master of Mercy shelter them in the shelter of God's wings for eternity, and bind their souls with the bond of life. God is their inheritance, and may they find peaceful repose in their resting place. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. We remember all of them. We remember those who have recently departed, Mark Francis and Cecil Chakal. We remember those whose yard sites we recall on this Shabbat and during this coming week. Bessie Barkin, Kava Basin, Brenda Booker, Michelle Ciara Carew, Charles S. Cohen, Toby Cohen, Westfall Donnie B., Ninetta Eliezer, Albert A. Gary, Saul Goodman, Marlene Gravitz, Morton Arnold Greenblatt, Elaine Harris, Morris Kaplan, Rosalind Karp, Isidore Katz, Sandra Kerman, Yativ Mazur, Sterling McGrady, Jeanette Melman, Bessie Rayson, Judith Lee Rice, Edna Sampson, Grandma Savran, David Schreiber, Jack Schwartz, Celia Schub, Edith Sugarman, Lorraine Schulman, Edwin Allen Seigel, Sidel Smith, Ree Wasserman, Louis R. Weinberg, Martin Bernard Weinberg, Fred Weiss, Sonia Wilinski-Willen. If there's anyone here who's in the period of mourning of Shiva, Shloshim, or Shana, or is observing a yahrzeit of a loved one whose name I have not called, I invite you as I face in your direction to please share their names with us.
C.P. Wachtenheim, who died in Auschwitz at the age of 6, and Bulma Baher, who died in Treblinka at the age of 9.
My grandfather who died in Auschwitz, Eliyahu Russos, with his 3 sons and 1 daughter, Julie Russos, his brother Yehuda Russos with his 6 sons and his wife, my aunt Rivka,
Dr. Eisenbach? Thank you.
Alberto Ben Ruby died in Treblinka. He was 3 years old. Yaakov Bakun died in Tarkhan, 5 years old. Zvi Schwartz died in Auschwitz, 7 years old. Yaakov Lieb died in Volga, 3 years old. Lelouch Pinkert died in Treblinka, 7 years old. Aggie Leibovitz, Auschwitz, 8 years old. 1.5 million children. 6 million Jews, 11 million people. We remember also those who tragically died, who were from the Humboldt Broncos junior hockey team, who died in a tragic bus crash last week. 16 to 19 years old were these players. There were coaches, trainers, and a commentator with them. We remember those whose lives were taken in Syria. We hold them with our own. We remember all those who have no one to say Kaddish for them, whose memories will be with us always. We hold on to them. For all those who have given their lives al Kiddush Hashem, for the sanctification of God's holy name, and for all of those who we hold with our own hearts, we recite Kaddish Yatom, page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yurtei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam l'omei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudesha b'richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiram bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlam marab min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say together, amen. But even from the ashes and from darkness, there is light. There is sweetness. Jack, if there is one thing that we take from tonight, while there were those who tried to destroy us, we are still here. And we are grateful that you are here, as with all of your family, as with all of us. They didn't win. We are winning. So Jack, will you come join me with Motzi, with reminding ourselves that there is sustenance and there is beauty and there are raisins in our challah. Because, a little bit of fruit of the vine in the challah too, my friend. You know what's wonderful also with the challah? What makes this bread different than all other breads? Look at it. Look at the shape.
Oh, yeah, it's round.
Well, it's braided.
Yeah, braided.
It's braided, right? Does this look like any other bread that you usually buy during the week?
No, it's all.
Yeah, exactly. It's challah. Makes it kind of nice for the special and different for tonight, right? Good. Ready? Baruch atah Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon. Grab a piece. Nice one. There you go. Yeah, there you go. And Dad, you know, our blessings come not only from our hands, but also from God on high. Nice one. Thank you, my friend. Go share some of that challah down there. Thank you all for joining us and bringing the light and the spirit of our Shabbat together, being able to share in the blessings of memory. Again, I want to thank Lori and Debbie and Sunny and Scott and Michelle. She went back that way. So very, very much for creating this service. Cantor for teaching us and reminding us to listen to a music that should never be lost. As we hold on to it and as we hold on to each other, we conclude with Osei Shalom. Osei Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'hakol Yisrael, ve'himru, himru, amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'hakol Yisrael, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'hakol Yisrael, ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'hakol Yisrael, ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'hakol Yisrael, ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'hakol Yisrael. Bruchim atem b'voachem, bruchim atem b'tzeitachem me'atav yad olam. Blessed were you in coming into this place of worship, and blessed may we be as we go forward to a Shabbat of health, of happiness, and of peace. And let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Please join us in the social hall for a very special oneg of Czech desserts. Shabbat Shalom.